Google India, and we have Paul Lupol, founder of 5 Ideas Startup Supersphere. Over to you, Paul.
Morning. So what we're going to do is not belabor on the point that you should be partnering with platforms, but essentially go into the what's on offer, how do you do this, what do you look for when you partner with platforms. So we have a great panel here. We'll do 20 minutes of discussion and jump into Q&A. Very clearly, the current times take the idea to development fairly faster, much less uncertainty. It's becoming easier to take a product to development, but getting it to market, accessing customers at the right scale and the right cost with the right customer experience is becoming a key reason for business model failure. And over to you, Bikram, and then we pass the mic around on how do you help startups beat that problem.
Okay, thanks. So yeah, morning everybody. Can I make a request that spot, can we reduce the spot or can we switch it off? It's really bright and it's hurting the eyes.
Thank you.
Okay, great. That's fine. Thanks. Morning everybody. My name is Bikram Bedi. I represent Amazon on the podium here today. As you're all aware, Amazon has a plethora of services out there which help people at various businesses, startups, developers, or enterprises. So specific to your question, talking about how is it that we are helping, we essentially believe that there's 4 stages. When a startup is out there, there's an idea, then you take it to a minimal viable product, scale, and then of course profitability. From our perspective, we think we add value to all of the 3. The idea is of course yours, but the other 3, we think Amazon has a lot of benefits that you could utilize to grow your business. AWS is Amazon Web Services. That I'm sure a lot of people in this room are using, are aware of, in terms of the ability to give you tools that are allowing you to build your applications or build your infrastructure. So they're integrated with open APIs to a number of open source platforms. So all of those are unique benefits, and since Pearl's asked me not to spend too much time on that, I'm not going to really get into the benefits of using AWS as a platform, etc. What I am going to talk about is scale and profitability, right? When you talk about scale, how can you uniquely leverage the platform? I think there's a few different ways of doing that. The first is about getting global. How does the platform help you go global? So I'll give you an example. Ramco is one of our customers who built their ERP on cloud on the Amazon platform, and they needed to launch in Brazil. Option 1, go build a data center there. Option 2, just quickly launch it off us, right? So how can you go global with the platform? That's one. How can you scale infinitely? Another example, Animoto. In fact, for those of you who were in Kavin's session, he spoke about moving 5 million users in 2.5 weeks to us because his servers were crashing and all the issues they were facing, right? And then they just scaled infinitely. So yes, so how can the platform help you scale infinitely? Then there's about the fact about who else is using that platform, because do you have the same backbone as the global giants? So today, Shell, Samsung, Instagram, Pinterest, Spotify use the same platform that the successful Indian startups use, like Dhruva, Reserve, InMobi, Zido, Redbus. They're using the same platform. So do you get the same backbone as what all the big guys are getting, right? So when you're talking about scale, there's a lot there that you can look at. And then besides that, what are the go-to-market programs that the platform is running? So for example, we have Marketplace, where you can go and list your product if you're running with Amazon Web Services. We had Jaspersoft list, and in the first month they signed up 100 customers, right? We have the APN network, which is the Amazon Partner Network, which basically we work with you in terms of technical enablement, sales enablement, marketing, and PR, including joint events. We're happy to do that with startups. Of course, we can't do it with everybody, but yeah, we would need to vet the startup and go through. So there's various such programs that you could take through. For example, another one would be the Amazon Store, where you can list your apps. to sell to about 200 countries, millions of customers. So there's various things that you could do off the platform. And the last one is profitability. Well, we've dropped our prices 37 times in the last 6 years. Yeah, we believe that as you scale, the prices need to keep dropping. We've rarely seen a customer who says, great product, you know what, you can take up the price. So, how can you leverage the platform to give you optimized costs? So I think that's, a little bit of a longish answer to your question, but I hope that covers some of the pieces you spoke about.
So one quick thing before we move on to the next panelist. One other platform that comes to your mind, which is doing a great job of helping startups scale, distribute themselves more profitably.
It's going to be difficult to take a pick because I think there's so much happening out there.
Yeah. Name one. If it's not like we're saying this is the finite list.
Yeah, well, that's a tough call. But again, it really depends on what what you are looking at as a specific area of interest. Because even if you look at all the platforms out there, some people are focusing. For example, Google's doing a great job on the the analytics piece, right?
Yep.
So there's different platforms out there. So like I said, difficult to take a pick. It really depends on what you're looking for in terms of specific to your business.
Sounds good. Thank you. Over here.
Sure. Our objective, of course, is to try and get more and more startups, not just to be profitable, but start looking at what is the next step, beyond what is already happening. One of the things, so we work with startups from stages where it's not even an idea, or we motivate startups to start looking at, well, before you start coding, what are the problems you're trying to solve? So you start running app innovation ideas contest, because a lot of people clearly want to do a startup, and the most obvious choice people end up today is, well, this model is working very well in the West.
Yeah.
I'm going to take that model, try and tweak it, cost optimize it, and do it here slightly more faster, better, cheaper, etc. Which works well, but not necessarily all the time, and many of them we see fall off the cliff, after a few weeks. So we start with what we call ideation and app innovation with developers who probably don't even have a line of code written, right? Sit with them, run contests, help them filter, to some extent even mentor, and get to an idea level. Once they start building up the ideas, and there's contests and rewards and technology benefits, etc. while they're doing that. Once the startups move from that stage, or the ideas move from that stage into a real startup where you start building a piece of code and a business plan, one of our objectives is to also drive efficiency in terms of how people build the applications or build their idea in form of technology. Paul mentioned about profiting from platforms, so we encourage people to start thinking about, would you build for a platform or would you build for a small set of platforms and hence potentially maximize your reach, right? So the typical thought process which goes into a developer's head is, well, wait a minute, if I have to start writing for multiple platforms, that increases my cost. Developer, would I not rather go into one and just see how it goes and then see? So that's where we come in from a horizontal player perspective and say, here are a set of tools where you can build and publish it across platforms. We talk extensively about technologies which are standardized. We're heavily into promoting use standard applications, use open source where you can, use techniques and abilities which will allow you to go across screen sizes, across platforms, across bandwidth, internet, etc., etc. So the objective there is efficiency and try and benefit from multiple platforms, not tens, but at least a few platforms, to get started. Then comes the stage where people build the prototypes, etc. We work with hundreds of companies on devices. Right today, it's not just a 11-inch screen or a 10-inch screen. Now you go anywhere from 2.5-inch screen to 40 inches, right? Depending on what you're writing to. We saw, if you walk down, and I'd encourage all of you to walk down all the booths outside, right? There are people showing content from 3-inch screens, 5-inch screens to 45-inch screens, right? So we work with developers. We have a lab in Bangalore. People come in, bring their applications. We give out hundreds and hundreds of devices to developers across the country to keep it with you on the premises, test it, bring back the application. Then comes the stage where obviously they go and launch on one of your platforms, get there. Typically, we were talking earlier in the lounge, where we see a lot of startups come back to us after they've been in the business for a few months, because that's when they run into scaling issues and market growth issues. Typically, scaling, when I mean not just market scaling but technology scaling, right? They've got more customers, they've got complex customers coming in, and they're running into interesting challenges from a compute perspective. So I won't go into great details, but we have code optimization experts, infrastructure optimization experts, and partnerships with a variety of hardware and infrastructure companies, where we can say, well, maybe if you do this, your efficiency, your response time gets 30% better, 20% better, in some cases 20x better. We've seen examples where we work with a company and the response time is suddenly 20x because they were doing something really silly.
Sounds good. So, Sunil, everyone uses Google,
Yep.
And what are some of the non-obvious ways in which, I'd love for you to focus on that, non-obvious ways in which Google is helping the distribution problem?
Yeah. Yeah, when you're looking at the entire Google solution, the enterprise solution architecture as such, it comes from the vision which says, work the way you live. And we also keep a serious note, in fact, that the digital natives, these are people who are born after 85, they already come to work, and it's so easy for them to work on multiple different form factors, and there are digital migrants who have been born before that, who are a little bit struggling up to it. But if you're looking at the kind of solutions that we have got, we've got world-class consumer solutions like your Gmail, and these works on a world-class infrastructure. Okay, it is the same infrastructure that we provide to our developers to use it at any point in time. And whenever a developer is making a kind of a bet on a particular platform, I think one of the most important things is the distribution and the kind of infrastructure that you get support from your vendors from. And you've got Marketplace, and if you're on Android, you've got Play Store. So these are your world-class infrastructure which is also there. And on top of it, what we are saying is, once you develop and deploy on it, you can access it from any of the form factors. And we also give you admin console, which says you can control your user, you can control the device, you can control the kind of services just by a switch of a button. So it's as simple as that. So we'll make this completely easy and seamless for you to adopt at any point.
Sounds good. I'd just like to also say that when I was building Fashion View, I couldn't have done it without Amazon. I couldn't have done it without Google. I couldn't have even done it without an HUL and a PNG. So startups have to think about that your consumers are not, they may be consuming your and your direct competitors' products for the first time, and you're competing with each other. But there are a lot of big companies out there, technology and non-technology companies, which have their distribution scale and reach to your customer. And if you can leverage innovative partnerships, whether riding on their sales and business development channels or their technology platforms, their infrastructure, knowledge, experience, it's amazing how with a very little partnership, it seems non-obvious at that time, and yet when we're building our startups, we're like, we don't have time for this, right? Amazon, of course, we have time for it, because otherwise our customers can't access that seamlessly. But it's unbelievable how, if you start leveraging corporate partnerships innovatively, the 0 to the first 1,000 customers and the 1,000 to the first 1 lakh customers is so much more easier than the traditional route of taking Facebook ads, Google ads. I develop everything in-house. I need proprietary tech, proprietary infrastructure. It just doesn't scale. Coming back to the panel, so everybody's quoting the developer today. As we build startups with as we invest in startups, we find that they have a host of choices, even at a very early stage, as to what platform to choose. So what are some of the pitfalls or the landmines that startups should watch out for, and what is the optimum model of engagement with a platform company like yours or otherwise? How should they go about engaging so that it's the best use of their time, and what are the risks, and what are the potential frameworks of making a decision?
Especially when you're looking at the Indian startup ecosystem, I think most of the developers, they get greedy at times and they want to develop on multiple platforms from day one. And when you're looking at the stakeholders, there are three stakeholders. You've got a startup, that's an entity, and you've got a partner, and you've got customers. Okay, and there is a fine balance that someone has to really look at when you're quoting the platform company vis-a-vis the developer. I'll just give you a solid example, and even I'm guilty of doing it in the past. Imagine a scenario where we released a fresh set of APIs, okay, and we say in next 1 month we would get the top 10 developers who have incorporated these APIs, and I'll give you a booth in one of the Google stands in XYZ conference and just do it. So what happens out there is, irrespective of whether there is a need for incorporating that API or not, I know to just do is they just go out of a way to just keep Google happy or any of the platform vendors happy, and boom, they are there. But you should be in a really good position to evaluate the kind of marketing ROI that you're getting from that kind of association.
Right.
And if you personally ask me, I think keeping the customers happy and doing something for him and getting a 5-star rating is much more appreciated than winning the platforms at that point in time. So don't just blindly follow what the platform vendor is asking you to do. Just evaluate the ROI that you see from a marketing standpoint and take a decision accordingly. Yep. Totally agree. Don't fall for feature crush. I was going to say sugar crush, but don't fall for a feature crush like crazy in terms of trying to pack everything into your app, or just in many cases trying to satisfy a platform requirement. The simplicity of your idea, if you're able to communicate it without a user manual to your consumer or whoever your enterprise customer is probably the essence of what you should be focused on, right? This is not a comparison of a spec sheet between your app and somebody else's app. Nobody's going to look at your spec sheet. You shouldn't be having a spec sheet, frankly. You should open your app, people should be able to look at it and say, okay, I think I know what this does, and I get on with it. I was just telling that either you're in the livelihood game or in the lifestyle game, depending on what kind of applications you build. Go after what you're really, really delivering. I'll just add one more point to the point which Pearl mentioned earlier on brands. Intel has a relatively strong, brand offering as measured by, many of the external metrics. Build on those brands, right? Take advantage of our brand association wherever you could. We have reach, all of us, many of the technology companies have a variety of marketing programs, offline, online, traditional, non-traditional. Come up with ideas and saying, hey, I'd like to be associated with that program, and this is how it makes sense. Now, if you come and say, hey, I'd like, my logo next to every Intel Inside logo on every newspaper ad, that's going to be a little difficult, but that's where, you knowing your customer can help in, getting involved with the plan.
Great. So before I get into landmines, you raised a very important point of corporate partnerships. And I want to talk about that for a minute. I think that's extremely important. And we have a few examples that have worked very well. So for example, Dhruva, right? Started small, scaled. We obviously saw potential. We're working with them on a number of GTM initiatives. They're today serving 1,400 customers in 46 countries, right? We have a partner who's built a dealer management solution. So we went and jointly pitched at Mahindra two-wheelers, and they've gone ahead and adopted that. We have another partner called Blaze Plan in Pune who's built, with Bajaj Alliance, right? So there's huge amount of value that you can provide both ways, right? So if Tata Motors is already a customer, or Videocon Industries is already a customer, and if you're a startup pitching in there, reach out to us if you're using our platform. We're happy to go make the pitch with you, right? So I think those corporate partnerships extremely important, right? Coming back to your point on landmines, for those of you who read the book Lean Startup, right? I think both Sunil and Narendra spoke about this. Keep it simple, right? Think big, start small, scale fast. But outside of that, I think there's a couple of pointed things that I'd like to talk about. Do look at the maturity of the platform that you have chosen. Don't be the first one to run into an issue. If you run into a problem, there have to be other people who run into that problem and solve it. So you need to have the ability to reach out to a larger ecosystem. So we think maturity of platform is important. because you're in a space where this isn't a structured IT environment where, the Oracles and the IBMs are coming and supporting you. Right? So that's something that we think that you should look out for. The other thing that we believe you should look out for is, look up and research the platform before you get onto it. Important to understand the DNA of the organization that you're going to be building on. Important to understand what DNA they come from, how they behaved with customers in the past. I think that's important. Some people treat it as trivial, but I think we tend to think that that's important. Is it a customer? Is it a company which has in the past worked a certain way with customers? Is it a is it a 70-80% margin company? Is it a high volume, low margin company? How do they work? I think that's important. And then of course, read up on them in terms of what they're offering services, as both my co-panelists advised. Go ahead, do a thorough read up in terms of what you're getting yourself into.
Sounds good.
I just want to add up on that. Again, re-emphasizing the same two basic points. One is when you're looking at a platform, just another piece of data, when you're looking at the top 10 platforms, right, whom you eventually want to work with, they contribute to around 95% of your global customers. And there's always a tendency for someone to jump from platform to one platform to another within their very first year. Once you're able to make a choice on a particular platform, those platforms will be having already hundreds and millions of customers over there. And it also makes sense to give 100% to that platform only if it is not working because of distribution or scale, only then you move out. And the second one is whenever the startups come to us, they always ask for ideas from us. And I think that's a very bad thing to do. Saying, is this the right idea and will it fly? If at all we knew, we would have done it. Right? And the right question to ask is, I'm thinking about this product. Can you give me consumer insights on how many consumer customers that you have who are using XYZ as a product, and where there could be a fit into that? So that kind of insights, the platform companies can very easily mine it and if you know somebody who's already done it, so I won't waste my time. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So those are the kind of insights. So you should have a very meaningful conversation with your platform vendors and not waste too much of time on the idea itself, but get into the consumer insights, which is much more useful.
Thank you. So we'll open it up for questions because we have 5 minutes. That's what that clock is telling us. Yeah. Yeah. Can someone?